Pick a move in the ring. You can hit me with a word you fling.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Post-Fight Podcast. I'm Nick Atkin at the South China Morning Post, and as usual, I am joined by JHK, John Hyun-ko over in Korea. John, a lot of news today. I guess we're going to start with the biggest. It's got to be Colby Covington confirming he's no longer at American Top Team after he disappeared from their website. He's made it official. He's spoken to Ariel Helwani and James Lynch at the Score. What do we make of it? He says he's now part of Colby Covington Incorporated, and he's going to make a new team. But was he pushed more than he left?
Well, that's what it looks like. Looks like he was pushed out from rumors that I've heard from fighters, off the record, or not off the record, but from fighters, that they were both kicked out the gym, and then Jorge was the only one that came back. So I don't know if that necessarily means that he was kicked out or it was his choice to not to go back. It seems like it was his choice, because he went out and said that he's starting his own company, Colby Chaos Covington Incorporated. And I'm very excited for him, and I'm very excited to see what he can do. And basically what they're doing is they're letting the chains off Colby Covington. You know what I mean? He's done so much with the chains on, but now with the chains off, it's open season. He's hunting and it's exciting. I love it. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I love the other side of the respect and the GSP style, but I love the chaos too. And he brings that flavor, and it's going to be so fun to watch. And there's so many matchups, and it's very clear now he can fight anybody. And he looks like he might want to even fight Dustin Poirier, which is someone that he apologized to, but now he took that back. If you watch the interview with James Lynch, shout out to James Lynch. And it's open season. It's hunting season. It's Colby Covington Chaos Incorporated. I love it.
Yeah, I guess it became an untenable position. The trash talking was too much, as you mentioned there. Lambert tried to call a truce and have Dustin and Colby apologize to each other or whatever went on there. Clearly, that truce fell apart and it was broken, and it was just too much. You can't have teammates fighting. And as Masvidal said, it was disrespectful, not just to the team, but to the whole sport of MMA. Do you see it that way? Or is trash talk part of the game? Should teammates be able to feud and publicly insult each other? It goes against productivity, doesn't it?
It does, but at the same time, is it manufactured or not? Is it real? Is it real trash talk? Do they really hate each other? They could be on the same team and hate each other. I've seen fighters that are not the best of friends, but they train together. They've known each other for a long time, and then one day they have to separate, and then you see what happens after that, right? So maybe it was always there, but it seems like it's been there for a couple of years now. He's been like that for a few years at the gym, and it created a bad environment, so to say. And this is the result. But I feel like it works out for Colby at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, he does look like the asshole a little bit in this, right? In this situation. But for himself, for his business, for his brand, he gets to flex his wings now, and that's all it's about. I think Colby realized that.
Let's take a little look at what Jorge Masvidal said in that interview with Ariel Helwani. He referred to Colby Covington as a cancer. Pretty strong. Let's get the full quote. Yeah, that dude was never a part of this team. He was just a cancer for the last 3 or 4 years. But at the end of the day, he didn't feel safe in here. I wonder why. So as you said, yeah, it seems like it's been going on for at least 2 years. Some kind of relationship was soured along the way. It's been well documented that Masvidal and Colby were friends, and Colby used to sleep on his sofa.
They were roommates for 8 years.
Well, he alludes to it in there. He says, Colby used to sleep on my couch, and he was crying when he broke his hand, and he considered quitting. And that's why Masvidal thinks he's never going to come back and fight anyone. All this talk about fighting Woodley, He says, look at this. Yeah, he's fragile. He's not a guy who's mentally strong. He used to cry on my couch all the time when he broke his hand the first time. He lived on my couch for about 8 or 9 months. He didn't have a job. He couldn't fight. He thought about quitting 2 or 3 times. So mentally, he's weak. I've been hearing the same thing about his jaw. I'd be surprised if he even comes back to fight. He said he was going to fight Tyron Woodley, but he wasn't training here. He wasn't training anywhere. Woodley was getting ready to fight Leon Edwards, and he actually signed a bout agreement to fight Covington, but Colby pulled out yet again for a 3rd time. So I don't know how he's got anyone even believing him. Yeah, what do you think? Is Colby, we talked about this before, but does he actually want to fight anyone, or is it all just noise?
At the end of the day, he needs to fight, right? And if he's going to fight someone, it's going to be one of the top 5 guys in the division. He's not going to take on somebody below that. That's not who he is. He's been pushing to fight either the champ, Usman, or the number 1 contender, right? That's it. He only has eyes for those fights. And that's clearly his plan. And that's what he's been promoting. I think the Tyron Woodley situation, it was more of him kind of getting back into the swing of things and getting his name in the press and doing his rounds with the media and all that stuff. But yeah, he probably wasn't ready to fight because that jaw probably wasn't ready for another 3 rounds or whatever he needed to go against Woodley. But now I feel now he's probably ready. He's made the situation clear that I'm by myself now. I'm bringing my own coaches. I'm bringing my own teammates. I'm creating my own team, which is going to be great for him, right? Because he's the sole focus of his camp now. It's like Tony Ferguson. You know, if you look at Tony Ferguson, he doesn't train with a team. He has his own team. He has his own coaches, right? And it's worked out very well for him. So I feel like Colby, it could happen the same way. He could hit another level if he does create his own team and get the right coaches and get the right people around him. And he does have a great management group, Bollinger Group. So the business side, I don't think he has to worry about. It's just getting in there and fighting, and he's going to fight. It doesn't matter what anybody else is saying, because Masvidal is just targeting the weaknesses. And of course he's going to do that, because why? He's going to fight Colby eventually. It's going to happen. And just like on the flip side, Colby, he's looking at the weaknesses too of Masvidal. You know what I mean? He's just poking at each other. That's what they're doing. And Usman's doing the same thing when he did his interview a couple of days ago. They're just poking at each other, but none of them have a fight agreed upon, which is so funny to watch.
Yeah, Masvidal made a good point, I thought, as well in that interview with Ariel, where he said, as journalists, why do you guys always just report everything that Colby says? You got to look into it. Because he's just talking smack. He says, I'm going to fight. But yeah, he wasn't training here. He wasn't training anywhere. Why do you report that, copy and paste everything? Is that a fair enough point for you? I think there's some substance there. Maybe we need to look at ourselves in the media and stop just saying, oh, Colby's going to come back. He's challenging Woodley. He's challenging Edwards. He's challenging Masvidal. He keeps doing the same thing, but is it real?
It's real when it's time to be real. He's just staying relevant, and that's his job, right? Behind the scenes, he said in an interview that his management group is talking to Dana White, is talking to the UFC, and trying to get a fight put together. And I feel like for Colby, he's not just going to take the first offer. He's going to try to get more money and get the bigger fights. And a lot of the other guys, they're not really worried about the money. They're satisfied with the money that they're getting, and they just want to have a fight coming up, and they want to compete. But it's not like that for Colby. Colby, his mind is different. With the media thing, it's true. Like, I think in 80% of the media, that's what they do. They just report what the fighters say. They don't really dig into it. They just like when Conor tweets out stuff, they report what Conor tweets out. They don't really dig into it. It's not really they're investigating anything that's going on. So yes, it's true that the media does kind of report things without giving too much consideration, but that's what media has turned into now. It's fast. It's like H&M, you know, H&M And Uniqlo, like the clothes and the fashion flip so quickly. That's like the media and MMA. It's just so fast. Everything changes every day, especially now with the pandemic going on. There's so many fight announcements, so many people talking trash against each other that that's the only way we could keep up, and also half the time, none of us are investigative journalists either.
Well, I'm guilty of it as much as anyone. I think this is how media works, right? Especially in the social media age. And I think, as to paraphrase Eric Cantona, the famous Manchester United football player, or soccer for America, it's like seagulls following the trawler, because the journalists used to always just follow him everywhere and report on everything about his life. But yeah, we're desperate for the news because this is our livelihood, isn't it? So we end up doing that. Anyway, that's quite a deep question to get into. So maybe we'll consider that another day. But why don't we move on? Yeah. So Jorge Masvidal has also been talking about Kamaru Usman, because it looks like Usman is now trying to get a fight with Conor McGregor, because Masvidal is trying to get a rematch with Nate Diaz because he obviously sees more money in it there. And he blamed the negotiations for the title fight with Usman falling apart because of Usman having insane demands for money, absurd demands, he called it. What do you make of this?
We don't know. We have no idea, but I could believe it. Look at who his manager is. His manager is Ali, and who just recently retired because they're not getting paid enough, and wanted more, much more. Henry Cejudo, who's his manager? Ali. It's the same manager, right? But if it's true, I'm glad it's true, because Usman deserves more money. I'm from now on, from years ago, I always promoted that fighters should negotiate if they have the power. And I think on the Joe Rogan podcast, Justin Gaethje referred to that. Like, when you're in that position, you need to take the power that you have and try to use it against the UFC and get as much as you can out of them, because it's not going to be there forever. And that's what Usman's doing right now. So if the negotiation fell apart, hey, go fight McGregor. Why not? That's where you're going to get your money from, not fighting Jorge.
He says, yeah, the criticism that Masvidal had for Usman was that nobody knows you. That's how he put it. I guess, yeah, Usman doesn't have a mainstream reach, and he used some numbers. He said, I had the biggest pay-per-view of 2019, that BMF fight with Nate Diaz at Madison Square Garden, UFC 244. And he said, you had the weakest card of the year, UFC 245 in Vegas in December. And he said, you should have had a lot more pay-per-view buys out of that, because you had a brilliant undercard. You had Amanda Nunes on there, and you had Holloway and Volkanovski, 3 title fights, but the pay-per-view still flopped because of you. That's what Masvidal said to Usman. Is that fair criticism? And does that mean Usman should probably accept a lower number?
It is fair criticism, but should Usman accept a lower number? Absolutely not. He's the champ. You're fighting the champion. The champion should not get less money than the challenger. That makes no sense. And I know it's prize fighting, and I know it's about who moves the needle, but Jorge moves the needle, So if Jorge moves the needle and he's the title challenger, that's who Usman wants to fight. Give him the money, and let's get that show on the road. Because if you're gonna sit there and delay because of money, then of course you're gonna move on. That's what Usman is talking about, right? He's like, if I'm not gonna get the money I want to fight Jorge, then I'm gonna go fight McGregor, because that's guaranteed money, and I understand that.
Yeah, it all seems to be a power play, doesn't it? And I think Masvidal knows McGregor's probably not going to fight Usman, so that leaves Usman with who? Leon Edwards, right? Not going to make much money on that.
No.
More respect to Leon, he's a fighter, but again, not a big name.
So it's gonna go back to Jorge eventually. If he doesn't sign the contract that they offer, and he goes over and tries to fight McGregor, and McGregor doesn't want to fight him, but I think McGregor would fight him, though. That's the thing, because it's an opportunity to go after the third title in the third weight division that he fights in, which is welterweight. That's an insane opportunity. Why would you pass that up? And you're going to get paid the same as you would if you're going to fight anywhere else. Man, Usman, I hope he does get McGregor. Why not? You know what I mean? Like that's a major fight, and for him to be able to fight McGregor and get the payday that he deserves, even if he loses, it doesn't matter. He's gonna get like great wealth from it. So it's man, it's so crazy like how McGregor changes the scope of that division.
But would it be any different, say, if McGregor comes in and challenges him? He's just gonna Usman is gonna ask for a bigger paycheck again, and UFC's gonna say no, maybe, just like with Masvidal. Does it make any difference?
I think it does make a difference because it's McGregor. And McGregor is going to draw so much more than Masvidal will ever imagine that he could draw. And and they're just going to give him the number above what is the lowest number that they've been offering him for the Masvidal fight, and then he'll take it, right? And it's probably going to be a decent chunk of change. Yeah, so I think the UFC would fork over some money to Usman because he does hold the belt, and giving McGregor this opportunity to hold another belt, man, and be in the history books, the UFC would love that. They love McGregor.
Yeah, and it's win-win for George, isn't it? Because say he goes and fights Nate, and then Conor fights Usman in hypothetical world. Say Conor beats Usman, then Masvidal v Conor is 10 times the fight that Masvidal v Usman is in terms of money for George.
Perfect. It's a perfect scenario for Jorge if he doesn't take this fight against with Usman, and Usman fights McGregor. McGregor beats Usman. McGregor holds the belt. Jorge Masvidal goes and beats Nate. They fight. Man, it will be one of the biggest fights in the history of this new era that we're in, where the trash talk is at insane levels. And imagine the trash talk that's gonna happen when those two guys eventually clash. But then you always still have Colby there. That's the crazy part too. You just can't forget about him. He's not the odd man out, and Jorge might fight him, because he already beat Nate. You know what I mean? I know that's a money fight, but he already beat Nate, and I don't think that there's too much interest. I feel like the interest is in that Colby fight. There's a lot of grudge there. There's a lot of history, and they could build that fight pretty insane. And imagine the press conferences. It's going to be like John Jones, DC level. Like, they're going to fight each other, I think, if they see each other. That's because Jorge, he's not going to back down. He pieced up Leon Edwards, and he was just talking trash from afar. Imagine like how much animosity Jorge has on Colby Covington. I'm excited for that one. I love this.
Yeah, and you think George probably knows the Nate fight. It's probably another win. He can go make a lot of money in the meantime and see how things play out, right? And there's just enough of a little bit of a question mark with the doctor stoppage to make it worth doing this fight again. I think you can argue that, and obviously Nate Diaz argued it was BS that the doctor stopped it, and he was just warming up. He was going to come into his own in the 4th and 5th rounds. And then they did trash talk a little bit after the fight in the month or two after. So I think this time, if they did rematch, you're going to see a different build-up because they were very respectful, weren't they, in the first instance? But I think this time they're smart guys, and they would know, all right, let's insult each other this time and then build some pay-per-view buys. And I think it would still do well, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would do well. But the thing about that fight is Nate is in a position where it's very similar to the position that he's in with McGregor. Like, McGregor always has that fight in his back pocket. And now Jorge always has this fight against Nate in his back pocket. So Nate could sit out another, I don't even know how long he's going to sit out. He keeps on sitting out for all these long periods of time, and people still want to see him fight. Of course, it's great. But I don't see Jorge going after Nate, unless it's like the last option on the list of options that he has. I feel like he would rather fight Colby. He would rather fight Usman or McGregor, or I think like those 3 fights are the top 3 fights, and Nate would be the last option. And then there's always the Leon Edwards too, hanging around, like he's in the back behind the fence, peeking his eyes over the fence, like, hey guys, I'm over here, right? And I feel bad for him. Out of this whole situation, I feel bad for Leon most.
Yeah, Leon actually called out Kamaru Usman on Twitter. Well, he wasn't called out. He said, yeah, if no one wants to fight you, I'm here. Let's do it. As you said, though, yeah, Colby's there. maybe Colby leaving ATT's gym is an indicator that they're going to fight Masvidal. Or who knows? There's a lot of dominoes to
Yeah.
fall, aren't there, in this welterweight division? So I guess we'll just see how it plays out in the next week or two. Maybe we'll move on here. Another interesting story, I guess. Anderson Silva calling for a super fight with Conor McGregor. I'll bring it up on the screen here. He posted on his Instagram. Yeah, immediate thoughts on that. Is that something you want to see?
I would absolutely want to see it. But it's a weird post. If you go to the top, it says exactly the weight that he wants to fight at, which is, what is that? What is 176.37 pounds? Why don't you just make it welterweight at 177? Does he know something? Does Anderson know something that we don't know about McGregor? Like McGregor, if he weighs in at 176.37 pounds, that he doesn't perform well, I have no idea. But I would like to see this fight, because they're not going to wrestle. It's almost like Adesanya. They're going to go in and strike. And I actually like McGregor in this fight. I like McGregor in this fight. It's just Anderson, he still can strike, but that age, father time is catching up to him. And he just got done with surgery, I think, on his knee again. And I don't know how many knee surgeries he's had. And then he's had that broken leg. And man, it's just, I just look at the Spider, Anderson Silva, looking for one last big payday. And this is what it is. He's looking for Anderson Silva, or he's looking for McGregor. And are they going to put this fight together? Probably not. Most likely not. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, let's just read what he said. I have immense admiration for the great athlete that Conor is, and I believe that a super fight would go down in the history of the sport. Neither of us need to prove anything to anyone. I believe that fans of the UFC and of this sport would like to watch this great martial arts spectacle. It would be fantastic to test my martial arts skills against him. Yeah, it would be cool to see, I think, but it's a step back for Conor, I think, isn't it? Given the options he has at the table in lightweight and welterweight, two divisions wide open for him at the top.
It's a massive step back. What has Anderson done in the last couple of years? Who has he beat? No, he hasn't beat anybody, right? He's won like one fight. So it's very odd. It would be very odd if McGregor fought Anderson Silva. I would watch it. I would like it. I would enjoy it. But it doesn't make any sense in any way for them to fight each other. Only makes sense from Anderson's point of view because he could get a big payday and he could fight McGregor because McGregor's the biggest name. But other than that, it doesn't do anything for him in any division. And I don't know what the mind state of Anderson is right now. It's like, is he even physically fit to even compete? It's just, I'm confused. Like, we as journalists, we need to dig into that, right? Like that's what Masvidal said, right? Before we say anything, we need to dig into Anderson Silva. But a lot of these guys, they don't say anything. It's hard to investigate fighters, right? Because they're just like at the gym, they're at home. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna peek through their window? You're gonna go like sneak into their gym? Even right now, everything's on quarantine or lockdown or whatever. So it's much more difficult to see what's going on. Yeah, Anderson Silva. I love the guy, but yeah, he's coming at it the wrong way. He's saying like, let's do this for martial arts. UFC is not about martial arts. Don't you know that by now? We need to go to one. Anderson needs to sign with one championship. I suggest Anderson sign with one championship. Then he can promote the martial arts and he can fight Vitor again.
That would be interesting. Well, as you mentioned, one championship, I guess that's a good segue into this story I had. I was supposed to interview Vitor Belfort this morning about 10 a.m. Going to have him here on the show. And then I get a message from the PR for one championship just telling me, oh, sorry, can we reschedule? Vitor's busy tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening because he's over in America, right? So I said, sure, of course, whatever. That's fine by me. And then Vitor pops up. Let's have a look. He turns up with Mike Tyson.
And his new best friend.
Yeah, Henry Cejudo's there as well. Rashad Evans on All Elite Wrestling, AEW, which is based out of Jacksonville, Florida. So I'll try and bring up the video here. Quite a bizarre crew, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a ragtag.
Ragtag
And who's the
mob.
guy in the white shirt? Who's TR?
I'm trying to figure that one out before. Yeah, I had no clue. But there's Cejudo in the back, right? Tyson in the front. Tyson's coming out to confront Chris Jericho, I think. Yeah, there's Jericho. Wow, what a group.
Who's it's like Henry's there, Rashad is there. I can see why Rashad's there. You know, Rashad's doing all different kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Henry, maybe he's leading him way. Maybe Henry's focusing on pro wrestling now. That's his new thing. And I feel like he can do it because he is the king of cringe. He is Triple C. He could change his name to Triple C and go to AEW or
AEW, yeah.
WWE. I would think they would like someone like him because if he becomes the WWE champion, then he'd be really talking all kinds of wild cringy stuff.
Yeah, I see Cejudo's connection because he was actually on Mike Tyson's podcast, I think, this week. So he's down in Florida. Vitor lives there, trains with Sanford MMA, right?
Yes.
I guess it makes sense. But Vitor was actually at the AEW show last week, I think, with Dan Lambert. There's some kind of connection going on here. And I'm wondering, yeah, maybe it's some big cross promotion they're planning with One Championship, because One Championship has also got a deal with TNT, the US network that AEW is broadcast on. And yeah, I think they have some things planned, according to Chetri. I heard that before.
They could have something planned. Maybe Mike Tyson's gonna sign with One Championship and fight somebody. Maybe fight I can't say he's gonna fight Vitor, but maybe, who knows? You know, because it's like that's also up in the air. Mike Tyson. They're talking about bare knuckle boxing. I think BKFC, they offered him $20 million, and then Vanderlei comes out and they said they offered him $10 million. I don't believe none of that. None of that. I don't believe at all. I don't understand how those guys would have $20 million to give Mike Tyson. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? The UFC doesn't even have $20 million to give their fighters. How could bare knuckle boxing? Are they getting that big of pay-per-views? I don't think so. So, yeah, I see Mike Tyson signing with someone big. You know what I mean? It could be, I don't know who it would be. It would be some boxing promotion or maybe even One Championship. They got the money. It seems like their coffers are filled with gold.
Do you feel like this might be a little play from Cejudo to just remind Dana White, hey, I could make money in pro wrestling? I think this probably came about because obviously Cejudo fought on 249 against Dominic Cruz, which was in Jacksonville, Florida, staying in the same hotel where all the AEW wrestlers were staying, because they were using the same arena that is owned by Shad Khan, owner of AEW and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think some kind of meeting was set up there. I think I remember being on the media day call when someone said, "Oh, Henry, are you hanging out with any of the pro wrestlers in the hotel?" And Cejudo was like, "What? Who? There's WWE's here?" And then I don't think he realized AEW is a separate company from WWE. But yeah, it sounds like there must have been some kind of interaction. Maybe Tony Khan went and spoke to Cejudo, made him a nice offer. Do you think he'd be a good fit in pro wrestling? He's good at talking, isn't he?
Definitely, and it's all acting, and it doesn't even have to come off as professional. You could you could just do what he did in MMA and with the UFC, with his promotion, his style of promotion, and just do it in pro wrestling. I think it would fit perfectly, and he's a guy that probably enjoys that like kind of cringy, that like fake. He enjoys it. He probably revels in it. You know, he probably would shine, to be honest with you, because he already has a name in real fighting, like Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? Brock Lesnar, he was a wrestler before, and then he went to MMA, but he went back. I feel like when he went back, he probably was a bigger star. I don't know. I don't really watch pro wrestling, though.
I watch a little bit here and there. Yeah, it feels to me, though, Cejudo is making a power play. He's saying to Dana White, I can go make a big payday in something I don't even have to hurt myself doing. I don't have to weight cut. I don't have to do all that. you should pay me more. Because
Nah,
you and I both discussed we don't feel like Cejudo's done, right?
no, he's not done, but I don't think Dana White is even worried about Henry Cejudo. I don't even think he cares about Henry Cejudo, what he's doing right now. He cares about him, but he doesn't care about what he's doing right now. Dana White came out today in his interview with ESPN and said Henry Cejudo is retired. Petr Yan and Jose Aldo are fighting for the vacant title. That shows you where Dana White is at with Henry Cejudo.
Well, it's not bad exposure, is it, for Cejudo? I think AEW averages about 800,000 viewers a week, especially more so when the live audience was there. So being on weekly television for a couple of months could boost his profile. I'm sure it might be some kind of negotiation tactic. Anyway, as you mentioned there, yes, Dana White has announced that the bantamweight title is vacant and it's going to be contested by Petr Yan, who is pretty much next in line. But then you've got his opponent is going to be Jose Aldo, who Henry Cejudo was going to fight before Aldo got stuck in Brazil, couldn't get visa to fight him, so Cruz stepped in at UFC 249. Think that's a fair fight, or would you rather see Yan v. Aljamain Sterling? I know Aljamain's going to be fighting Corey Sandhagen, right?
The perfect fight for the vacant title would be, like you said, Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. The winner of that defends against Corey Sandhagen. If in a perfect world, that's what it should be. But with Henry Cejudo retiring, that kind of screwed over Marlon Moraes more than anybody, because he was already set to fight Petr Yan, and with Henry holding the title, he could actually earn another title shot by beating Petr Yan. But with Henry Cejudo out of the picture, he can't fight for the title again. Doesn't make any sense. He just lost, he lost his title shot to Jose Aldo. Does Jose Aldo deserve a title shot? No, it doesn't, because he lost to Marlon Moraes, but you can't give Marlon Moraes another title shot with a win over Jose Aldo. And I'm really contradicting myself right now, because it's like neither of these guys deserves a title shot. But with Petr Yan, he deserves it. So it's like the UFC is kind of doing Petr Yan a solid, and also doing Jose Aldo a solid, because Jose Aldo was set to fight for the title against Henry Cejudo, and then they had to pull him out of that fight, even though he wasn't injured because of the travel bans and everything that was going on with the pandemic. So they're like, okay, we had to pull you from the first fight, but we're going to give you this shot. And it helps to be a legend of a division, and it helps to have a long history with the UFC and taking fights. And they're kind of paying Jose Aldo back for all of that right now. And this is Jose's last shot. I feel like if he doesn't win this fight against Petr Yan, that he's not going to have many big fights in the future. And let me give you another example, is Frankie Edgar. They've done that for him many times. And it's just rewarding the company, man. And I feel like Jose Aldo was a good company man for a long time, and he's getting that fight. That's all I have to say about Jose Aldo. You know what I mean? He's a legend, man. You can't argue against him being a legend, but he doesn't deserve this title shot.
Okay, more from Dana White. He said that the Korean Zombie is going to fight Brian Ortega, and the winner is going to face the winner of Alex Volkanovski and Max Holloway. You feel that that's the right play?
That is the right play. If you look at the rankings, the Korean Zombies ranked number 4 behind Zabit, Ortega, Holloway, and I'm missing somebody. I forgot who the other person was. But yeah, it's just that makes sense, because they were supposed to fight in Korea. We were supposed to be there. Well, we were there, but they were supposed to be there fighting, and we didn't miss that. We got to see the Korean Zombie just disseminate, Frankie Edgar. But they were supposed to fight, and that was the big draw, you know what I mean? And it didn't happen. So I feel that's great for them to put that fight back together. And they also have that little beef that was stirred up because of the Korean Zombie's manager. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, he's ranked number 4 behind Zabit, Ortega, and Holloway. That's great. Yeah, so with Ortega, it's gonna be tough for him though, because he hasn't fought in like over a year. He came off that, like, his last fight was a loss to Max Holloway where he took so much damage. Then he was supposed to come back and fight the Korean Zombie. He got injured again, and he hyperextended his leg, which is not a good injury to have. His knee was so ripped apart. But coming back from all of that and with the time off, it's gonna be a hard fight because the Zombie's been pretty active in the last year, and it's gonna be a great fight. But I feel like the Zombie goes in with a lot of advantages, but it's not like he's like a clear-cut winner, because these guys both can fight in any part of the cage. Like, they could stand up, they could go to the ground. I'm more hyped for this fight than for Max Holloway versus Volkanovski. I feel like that fight is going to go to a decision again, and I don't know who's going to win it, but it's going to go to a decision again because those guys are technicians. But this fight with Ortega and the Zombie, it's going to be pure violence because there's a lot of emotions, in that fight, and both of those guys are finishers, and I can't wait for it.
Do you think there's a case for the Zombie to just sit this one out and wait? And does he already deserve a shot? Because, yeah, as you said, he was meant to fight Brian Ortega in Busan. Ortega got injured, so he did his side of the deal. He fought Frankie Edgar, destroyed Frankie Edgar, called out Volkanovski. On paper, he earned this shot, I guess, right? So why risk it all again by fighting Brian Ortega?
He could wait it out, but if you look at him, he wants to stay active because he missed like 3 years. 3 years of his life was in the military, not fighting at all. And then when he came back, he fought once and missed another year. So he wants to keep active and he wants to make money. I feel he is focused on making money and taking big fights and going for that title. And if he has to fight again, because if he has to fight again, he has to fight again. Sitting out should be only an option if you're comfortable enough to sit out and wait. Because sometimes if you sit out, if we've seen in history, you don't get a title shot. Sometimes it doesn't even go to you. You could sit out and next thing you know, some other guy fights and he skips over you and you're in the dark alone with no fight. And now you're fighting some guy in the 10 to 15 range, which could really screw over your chances at getting another title shot or getting a title shot. So yeah, he should fight Ortega. They're gonna fight eventually, so why not take him out? And stylistically wise, I like this fight for the fans more than, let's say, the Korean Zombie fighting Zabit.
Okay, well, what about this? Justin Gaethje and his coach Trevor Whitman on Joe Rogan's podcast, which obviously is moving to Spotify, but I'm not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what Justin said on the show. Yeah, he's talking about he's not going to trade a Khabib title fight for the McGregor money. I think we've heard this kind of chat from Justin before. He said similar to Brett Okamoto a couple of weeks ago. I could fight Conor right now if I wanted to, but I want to legitimize the process and, so that young guys coming up know that you're not going to get screwed over by politics. If you earn your opportunity, you're going to get it. He said all that before, but something that piqued my interest, probably going to write an article on it later, is just these quotes. I think he's talking about, yeah, here we go. And if Conor is not there, I'll fight Dustin Poirier. He's saying Conor's not on my list. Khabib and Poirier are the two on my list right now. If I fight both and make good paydays, then I'm good. So is this just mind games? Because, of course, pretty much everyone would take a McGregor fight. It's the biggest payday. But is he just trying to get under McGregor's skin and say, hey, look, I don't need to fight you. I'll fight Khabib, and then I'll go try and get that win back off Dustin Poirier. I mean, that would be a great fight too, right?
Those are all great fights. But in that quote, he says, business-wise, the smart move would be to fight Conor. And yes, you're right. There's a lot of money there. And then he's talking about fighting Khabib and Poirier and getting good paydays. What's better than a good payday? A great payday. And why would you not go for the great payday and the self-proclaimed GOAT, right? He's running around saying he's the GOAT. He's number 2 on the list maybe tied for number one. Why wouldn't you fight him? He is making a stand, but I also feel like he's playing the politics himself right now. You know, he's saying that he's in control. Conor's not in control. I'm in control. I'm holding the belt. But it's weird. Like, it's weird, like how they can say things, and then the next week they can say something completely different, and we'll forget about what they said the week before.
Yeah, I just think there's a chance to Khabib cannot make this fight because, as we talked about before, he's stuck in Dagestan where the coronavirus is a really bad situation with that. He may not be able to get out of lockdown. Justin, do you wait for Khabib? It could be next year. If you don't wait, are you really going to fight Poirier or are you going to fight McGregor? Obviously, McGregor, much bigger payday.
The UFC is not going to say go fight Poirier. What was the last Poirier's last fight was against Khabib, right? And he lost to Khabib, and also Poirier is about to fight Dan Hooker. They already lined it up, I feel, for what is it, end of July or June. Dustin's not in that conversation anymore. You know, he's now back in the conversation of trying to claw back into that top 5. You know what I mean? He might be ranked top 5, but I feel like he's not up there in the conversation of the top. Where is he at in the rankings?
Yeah, look, he's above McGregor. He's
above McGregor, right above McGregor. That's right. But like we always say,
all right, I deserve it more than Conor. I deserve it more than Dan. I'm above them.
Yeah, you're right. But but we know that the rankings don't mean anything unless the UFC wants to pull it out and say like, "Hey, this guy is ranked higher than this guy. We're going to give him the title shot." That's when the UFC wants to use it, right? It's business. So when it works for them, they're going to use it. When it doesn't, they're not going to even mention the rankings anymore. Justin, he's just playing the field right now, and you know, he's got to say something interesting during the Joe Rogan podcast. If you don't, then what was the point of even going on that thing?
Yeah, I'm still watching it. I got about an hour in. It's a very long one, like 2 hours 46. But yeah, it's some really interesting stuff. I recommend going and watch it if you haven't. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to talk about. You haven't seen anything else you want to mention?
No, I haven't seen anything. But I'm pretty sure by tonight or tomorrow morning, there's going to be more. There's going to be some video that we haven't seen, somebody captured, you know, secretly, and it's going to come out on TMZ or I don't know, something. Like I'm always waking up. We're always waking up to news because while we're sleeping, something's going on the other side of the world. And then when we wake up, we find out, right? So waking up is always fun.
Yeah, well, we'll see what tomorrow brings. Anyway, thanks again, John, for joining us. Everybody go check out John. That's the handle down there at JHK MMA on Twitter, YouTube, everything. I'm Nick Atkin. You can find me there, Nico SCMP on Twitter, Instagram. And check out SCMP MMA on YouTube, on Facebook. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you again after a while.